Hello, everyone. Welcome to Life Edge, because life just doesn't have to be mediocre. I'm joined today by our southern co-host. She's in the southern reaches of Mexico. She's in Chapala, Mexico, having a vacation. Dr. Susan Nash. Hey, Susan, how are you?
Oh, hello. Hi, Rick. It's great to be here.
Yeah,
And
how is it down there? How's your weather holding up?
Oh, things are fantastic. I'm in Chapala, which is close to Guadalajara. And you were mentioning earlier that there's a little bit of problem with the lake. Well, I'm here to tell you the lake looks great.
Cool. Water's back.
And the water is back.
Send some up here to LA. We need it.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, we've got a great guest today.
I'm broadcasting from La Casa del Café.
Ah, okay.
And they have a great internet connection and a fantastic cappuccino.
Sounds wonderful. Hey, we just got a new espresso machine I'm happy about. I'll tell you later about that. Anyway, here we go. We have a great guest today. We don't want to waste any more time. And we are back. Well, today we have with us Susan, Tracy Goodwin. She is a voice coach. She has a great website we're going to be showing later on, captivatetheroom.com. And we all know what it's like to captivate a room, or not always captivate a room. So let's introduce. Here we go. Tracy, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you guys doing?
We are doing well, and we're so glad you could join us and share some of your wisdom and knowledge with us. We were talking a little bit pre-show. You're living in New York right now, originally from Texas. And how did you wind up getting into voice coaching?
You know, it started, unbeknownst to me, it started when I was a little girl, and I was raised where it was that children are to be seen and not heard. And so I needed to find a place to have my voice heard. And I started presenting speeches and started winning speaking awards at the age of 12. And it's just progressed and progressed and progressed. Nuggets here, nuggets there, people always trying to get me to coach their voices. I had a catastrophic event happen to me, and my voice ended up sounding like this. And as a result of that, I got to work with some voice masters. And so really, it's been my whole life. I've been coaching voices really heavy, really predominantly for the last 20 years.
Now, a lot of people who aren't into voiceover or into working with their voice don't really realize what a tool it is and how much fun you can have with it. I've seen a lot of your podcasts and the advice you give. What do most people mess up with the most on their voices?
They flatline. They don't understand the power of variety. There are 5 elements of vocal variety, and we want to use all of them because that is how we bring the words to life. And by using that full orchestra, we touch the senses of our audience, in turn affecting their emotions. And that is how we get people to follow us, to buy from us, to learn from us. That is how we change lives. And so people miss those key 5 elements, and they're super easy. So that's one of the big things I see.
Well, Tracy, I have something that happened to me that will be absolutely opposite of what you're saying. So I'm seeking your insight. I had a hideous review when I was doing volunteering at LibriVox. I thought it would be good to do the different voices of the characters. So I tried to do a growly voice and a tiny little wispy voice, just so you could differentiate the characters. I got vicious reviews, and they said that I ruined it for them, that they wanted a calm experience.
Well, I've had a few vicious reviews myself. And I don't know the full scenario of the setup there, but, I think you made choices. And I think making choices is always a good choice. Now, if you didn't have the information ahead of time that they wanted a calm experience, man, that's unfortunate. But I think what I'm talking about, I think you're talking about voices, like characters maybe. And what I'm talking about are shades, the 5 shades of variety, shades of loud and soft, shades of fast and slow, shades of high and low, pausing, the most powerful tool in the toolbox, and elongation. I'm always up for a great character, but, that's tomato. That is kind of a different thing. I'm talking about the difference in, well, I'm glad to be here, guys. Thanks for having me. That flat line, that disconnect versus, guys, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me. Those kinds of shades.
Oh, that's super interesting. And another question that I have, so if you're doing that, how do you know how far to go?
Great question. What everybody tends to do is most people have a go-to or two. Most people will tend to go to loud, or maybe they pause a little too much, and it becomes a pattern, it becomes a voice habit. And so, I say, first and foremost, you need to know what your stress words are, what your stress sections are. And when I say the word stress, what I really mean is, where are you adding value? You need to add value as if you were my tour guide. I don't know what you know. So where are the places that you need to add a little extra emphasis? From those places is where all variety flows. So, if I want to really make a point, I might speed up. Or if I really need you to understand, I might slow down. So it's simply words or phrases that we want to add extra emphasis to so that the audience can know this is important. I need you to know this is important to me, and I need for you to know this is important to you.
Now, Susan, did you notice when Tracy went fast and when she lowered, did you notice the emotional difference?
I did. And I liked it. And it kept my attention.
Mm-hmm. When you lowered, Tracy, when you went from a higher to all of a sudden you lowered, it's like, you're
right.
Getting attention. And it popped right in. You could feel that emotion of not tension, but I got to pay attention.
Well, that's that unpredictability. And see, that's what variety does. Without variety, we become predictable. You know where I'm going, you know how fast I'm going, you know where I'm pausing, you know I'm not changing anything, and every 90 seconds our brain tells us to check out. So if I've got your voice number, when my brain says check out, I'm going to look at my phone. I'm going to see what's going on. But if I am always shifting, I'm unpredictable, and you don't want to miss anything, so you stay with me. That's what it means to captivate the room.
Now, what do you think of this technique? This is something I remember I had a college professor, and he would, this is before cell phones, so we had to have a little bit more attention, but he would be talking, and he would immediately go, Zanotti! And I'm up. It's like, hello? Where was I at that moment? I don't know, but I'm attentive right now. And it was a great technique. He would just call you by name, quickly, out of nowhere. Attention. And that was one way to capture people. It was sort of irritating, and he really got you right at the wrong moment, which was a skill in and of itself. But as a public speaker, you're dealing with rooms. You're dealing with rooms of people and very different kinds of people. What do you think of techniques that do kind of shock somebody right into attentiveness?
Well, I think they are just that. I think they're a technique, just like I think I get asked a lot about using foul language. Do you think that's a good idea to scream a cuss word out?
Yeah.
It's definitely a choice. But this is my take on this, and this has really been my hot button for the last few weeks. I've been doing a lot of trainings on this. Every single person has an aversion to something. My aversion is loud. I was yelled at a lot in my life. So if I get a speaker or a presenter or a business person that's constantly hammering at me the whole time through their whole webinar, guess what I'm doing? I'm not listening.
Right.
I'm pulling back. But yet, see, you've got people who like that. So this is why we have to use all these elements of variety, use the technique. That, to me, is simply a technique, a loud choice. You know, I'm creating an unpredictability. Now, if you do that the whole time, you're going to lose a third of your audience that's loud averse. Right. You're going to, you know, if you over pause, you're going to lose the people that are pause averse. So that's why we want to roll all that in. You know, once or twice here and there, that's great. But if you do it the whole time, you just became predictable, and you're going to lose your people that cannot tolerate loud. And you're not playing any of the rest of the orchestra. You're playing one section of the orchestra. Play the full orchestra.
That's a great point. I remember seeing an old actor who died. It was Dick Shawn. Any of you guys remember Dick Shawn? He was very popular back in the 70s, 80s. He was on Get Smart, a whole bunch of different shows. He was a comedian for the most part, but he was a very smart comedian. And I saw him in a show called The World's Second Greatest Entertainer. And the first part starts with him doing a monologue about the beginning of the world. Dinosaurs and how they all died and created us. You know, actually they created oil. When they all died, they all exploded out of constipation all at once and died. And that created us. But during the show, he said 4 curse words. 4. And every time the audience laughed, he'd write it down. And at the end of the show, he said, you know, every time I do shows, I look at what people pay attention to. And every time I say a bad word, immediately people laugh. You're one dumb audience sometimes. And the audience starts laughing again. He's got a point. But he literally said, I got the loudest attention on these 4 words. What does that tell us? It was a good point. It was very interesting. And I guess I molded to me, like I've heard a lot of comedians, and some of them like Eddie Murphy and stuff, who are hilarious without the bad words. And yet when they do their private shows, or, you know, the public shows where they make money, it's all cuss words. And you go, you don't need a guy. You're really good without it. It's an interesting kind of thing. I think we rely on a quick laugh, maybe, but there's no real, I don't know, there's not much to it.
Well, I have a question about a place where we could never use curse words, but we have to keep people's attention. And that is in the e-learning that's so popular today that has to do with PowerPoints that are guided by voice. Those are the worst. And I know that you train a lot of actors, but I think, what would you say to training experts in e-learning?
Well, you know, actually, the number of actors that I work with right now is pretty small. I actually am primarily, and in fact, the majority of my client base right now are people who are doing e-courses or podcast. That's my main client base, and I love working with those people. It's the same thing. In fact, I have a full video out on, I call it PowerPoint voice. When, you know, then it becomes even more crucial. We can't see your face. We can so easily pick up our phone. We can so easily click you off. You have to bring the words to life. You have to remember, we don't know what you know. I'll never forget the first time I went in a live training, and they did a lot of that kind of stuff. And this young man, he raised his hand and he said, okay, so what do we do when I know the guy on the other end of the line is playing Angry Birds? And I said, you better get unpredictable, and you better get it fast, because you're doing it, you're giving everything the same value. You gave him permission to stop listening to your course, or to put you on triple speed, or to just read the notes. Webinars kill me. Webinars kill me. You know, and I get it, but people are leaving money on the table. People are leaving money on the table. It's just like video. There is a way that you can, you know, make a big impact from the start on video. Same thing with PowerPoint voice. You know, we get complacent. We read the slides. They're reading the slides. We're just narrating. What's the big deal? Well, it's a really big deal, even more so than live, because they can click you off.
I totally agree with you. So what are 3 points that you would like people to remember who are doing PowerPoints and are trying to get the PowerPoint voice?
Yeah, first and foremost, find those stress words. That's one of the biggest areas I see people really miss the mark. They give everything the same value because they forget that we don't know. So finding those stress words from the start is really key. I think pace is really important. A lot of people, see, our perception is not the same as what is being received. We perceive we're doing something else is being received. And far too many people go way too fast. They go really fast and they're delivering the lines. Guess what? If we can't follow you, we're out. Remember, we've got that 90 seconds. You're going too fast. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not working that hard. That's our audience now. They, you know, there's another guy, there's another show, there's another course. I don't have to listen to you because I can't understand you. I'll go listen to her because I can understand her. So I think pace becomes really, really important. And that perception of what we're actually doing versus what is actually being received. You know, we've talked about the variety elements. That is key. And then, of course, I guess my next biggest thing is getting all the sounds out. You know, we create these patterns, and I don't like the word articulation. I don't use the word articulation because we say that, and then people start talking like this. Drive to the end of the sound. Drive to the end of the sound. Every sound of every word paid the same admission price to get out of your mouth. If they don't get out, you've got to give refunds, and we don't like that. We don't want to give refunds. So you drive to the end to get every sound out beautifully.
Well, I love that. And one big question I have is, do you help people with accents?
Yes. Reducing the accents?
Yes. How do you do it?
Yeah, I would say a third of my client base always is accent neutralization. A third, always. I use a methodology that is based in phonetics and placement. My whole entire training and teaching and everything I've studied and researched for the last 20 plus years is that our voice is based on what I call the psychology of the voice. Every experience that comes into our brain is then shapes our voice. The voice is the most powerful tool we have, and it is the most vulnerable tool we have. Our voice is the orchestra of the heart. So you send me somebody who has an articulation problem, I can guarantee you they were told to shut up all throughout school or at some point in school. The brain said, keep it in, keep it in, keep it in, keep it in. So we lay in a new top layer, we reshift the way the face is holding the words. And that's my approach to accent neutralization. If we lay it into the body, we will change it forever. If it comes in audibly, we're again thinking it through. That doesn't work. I'll hear people say, oh, remember to breathe. You're not going to remember to breathe. You might remember once, but what is laid in your body is then that muscle memory is going to kick in, and that's what you're going to do. Same thing with accents. You know, we need to adjust the placement. An Australian accent's way back. You know, a Irish accent's way forward. A Russian accent. You know, we have to make some tweaks, and we make it in the muscle memory, and then you're set.
How interesting. Also, how would I neutralize my accent?
Well, let's see. Could you tell me a couple of lines and let me see if I can see where you're placing your sound?
Okay, so right now I'm in Mexico, and I live in Oklahoma, and let's see.
That's okay, I got it.
Theology. Okay, perfect.
I got it. Okay, your sound is being placed too far back. So you're missing, This is where we talk about the pipeline, and this is something I have to do with almost everyone. A lot of accents, the pipeline, you know, there's a pipeline where the sound comes straight out, and that sound is more forward. Most accents are placed further back. So if I say to you, go ooh, go ooh. Okay, so you feel how that pulls forward?
Yes.
I would teach you that placement first. And we would do a series of words. You would practice a series of words that are like ooh, new, words with that ooh sound where you're bringing your mouth forward. We're laying in that forward placement, and that's going to pull that sound more forward and neutralize it. Now, there might be other sounds, other placements that we need to tweak, but that is where I would start, because right now your sounds are just resting too far back, and that is part of what is creating the accent that you have.
Okay, so instead of saying moose, I should say moose.
Yeah. So now you don't want to go out in the world and say this. Let me spell a word. I'm going to have you say it the way you would normally say it, but I'm going to spell it because I don't want to say it. Say the word COOL.
Cool.
Okay. Now bring your mouth really forward and go cool.
Cool.
Now do it one more time. Cool.
Cool.
Now say it normal.
Cool.
Yeah. See, you do that enough. You practice that every day in the morning for 2 weeks. That's going to pick that sound up and lift it forward so that your ooh becomes ooh.
Ooh, instead of ew.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So that's a placement adjustment.
Now, with Susan, it's interesting because when you talk to Susan on the phone and she's relaxed, and she sounds different. When you get her in front of camera, she starts going back, like you said. She gets more inhibited.
Yeah,
and it's interesting.
totally.
She's a public speaker. She's talked in public. She's a professor. She's in front of a lot of people. She works in associations. There's a part of you that goes backwards and kind of holds it in.
I tell you, Rick, the camera freaks most people out. Now, I had the
True.
pleasure of being a television actress for 10 years, plus, so I learned a lot of tricks, and I coach a lot of people, actually, on camera training. I have had clients in Australia. They come to me, their YouTube videos, and we work through it. Something about the camera puts everybody in a different zone. Yeah. It's weird, it's awkward, it's not the most natural feeling. And so there's definitely tricks that we can do to recreate that conversational sound, to make people, help people get in that zone from the start. Most people, and this is my big issue with webinars, most people get into the zone. If they get into the zone, they get into it 3 minutes in. Well, guess what? If you don't hook your audience from the start, are they going to stay with you for 3 minutes? Yeah. So we've got to set that zone up.
That's absolutely so true. I've done webinars for Adobe on how to keep the attention of people, how to make your webinars interactive and get them, keep them. And I used to have anywhere between 200 and about 500 attendees in these webinars. We did them for about a year. And I kept asking, what's my dropout rate? And they go, oh, you had like 1 or 2 people. I go, that's it? I'm doing something right. And I was really happy with that. Somehow I was able to keep it flowing, keep it going. And it was really learning as I went, because I knew what I was trying to teach, but I wasn't sure how it would turn out. And I just found that fascinating, because in a webinar, success is whether they call you afterwards or how many stay that whole time.
Yes, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. Well, I have a point too that I was thinking when you're right about that, Rick, that I just like paralyzed and for some reason in terms of like a formal setting. But if I'm just out doing a podcast by myself where I'm completely in the wild and I'm just talking to myself, I'm fine. And I sort of rehearse what I'm going to say, and then I do it. It takes like about 30 seconds to a minute. Everything's good. But then somehow when I'm seeing myself in the monitor, I'm seeing Rick, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I think what I need is an automatic voice. And what you said about capturing people in the first nanosecond is great.
Yeah, and one of the things that you can do to fix that is what I call the prequel. So when we're mentally ready, the camera hits go, we say go, Rick says go, and it's, hey, okay. So what we want to do is you want to have the conversation prequel, and we're talking, and hey, and yeah, and so hey Bob, how's it going? Yeah, okay, good. Well, I'm going to be teaching about so and so today. What about you, Jim? Good to see you. It's good to see you. Hey everybody, Tracy here. I'm so glad you're with me on the channel today. So you put that into the muscle memory, and I think a lot of times you have to do a little bit of mind's eye work. You know, if we go to looking at ourselves, we get in a bind. I kind of jump into that mind's eye and I just start talking. I just rely on my voice and what I've laid in the muscles, and then I'm good. I've done the prequel. I'm in the show. I'm in the zone.
That's perfect. I play a lot of tennis, and I can really, really see how that works in tennis as well.
Also, when you first get on a show, we've done over 600 of these, and at first it was sort of like, it took a while. It's like, camera's on, it's not just a microphone, there's a camera there too. But after a while, you kind of ignore everything.
Yeah.
You just figure, the camera's there, but who cares? It's just sort of, it's there. And because if you start looking at yourself, you go, oh man, my hair's not right. Or oh man, I didn't shave right. Or this or that. And by the time you're done, it's like, oh my God, I was awful. And sure enough, you probably were that day. But I've been telling Susan for a while now, don't think about it. Just be yourself. Yeah. When you're yourself, you're charming, you're fun, when you get on sometimes. And then, of course, she told me, she laid it back on me really well. She goes, well, it's only when you're there.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out, what do I do to her?
Well, and it's just a weird thing, you know. I mean, so many people struggle with it, and I help so many people with that. And you know, I love that you said that about the hair, because I think it's so crucial that we start off strong. And I see so many people doing these live streams, and they hit the button and then they do this. Okay, I thought it was just me that drives me crazy. I did a webinar, I talked about it, and the whole audience, in the webinar just went, yes, we can't stand that. That's just, it's like,
it's usually a nervous,
there's things called,
look in the mirror. Affectation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's some sort of contagion with these like little ticks and whatever. I mean, it's like, we could just sit around and think, okay, I want to communicate a concept.
Yeah.
And I'm not really thinking about, oh my gosh, the lighting's off, or there's glare on my glasses. It's not so terrible.
Well, I have one, but it's not a vocal one. I do this, and I'll show you. I tend to adjust the mic. Da, 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 da. And then it's like, hi. And it's a weird thing, and we were talking about it earlier. It's a habit. I don't know why, but I've always kind of adjusted the mic. Part of it is because I move around a little bit, and so I'm always thinking, did I get the mic in the right place? Let me just adjust it again. But these are just habits. They're weird. It's not a nervous habit per se, it's just a weird thing.
It's something you started doing, and then you laid it in, just like voice habits. It's like the girl that will play with her hair. She doesn't even know she does it anymore. She started doing it. I work with people that they'll pull their lips back, they'll purse their lips, or they'll, all kinds of stuff. And they've done it so long, they started doing it at some point, and then it calmed their nerves or whatever it was, and then they just do it. And then, I was a sigher. I didn't know it. 20 years ago, a cast member, I was directing a show, she came up and said, do you realize you sigh all the time? And I went, no, I don't. And I went, oh my gosh, I do.
I like
it's
that.
Interesting. Now, how did you originally get into voiceover? Or I should say voice coaching. You said you did acting. Did you also do voiceover work?
I did. I always did voiceover work. And see, what I was really doing was running as fast and hard for as long as I could from my purpose, which was to be a voice coach. I had always wanted to be an actor, and I worked as an actor, and I did a lot of voiceover work, and people kept finding me to coach them on voices. Universities, colleges, conservatories kept hiring me, and I kept saying internally, I am not qualified. I am not a voice coach. Well, I'm intuitive. I hear things in voices that will blow your mind. I can listen to a voice and say, what are you so upset about? What are you trying to prove? What happened with your mom? I hear that in the tonal qualities. And so then I went and got a graduate degree in directing, and I directed plays all over the world, and people kept finding me. Colleges kept hiring me. And so I finally just said, then I went and got another degree in corporate communications. People kept finding me, and I loved the work, and I was gifted with it, and so that's when I just finally decided to do it. But I had done voiceover all along, even when I was doing children's theater, even when I was, teaching in universities, I was always doing voiceovers. I was doing a lot of books on tape by that point in the game, and it was great. I loved it. It was a great side gig, and then my voice coaching just was just so heavy that I rarely do it anymore. My voice is so taxed not taxed, but on with clients such a big portion of the day that I need to rest it, and that's not my love anymore. I love working with people, so I don't do too much anymore.
How'd you come up with Captivate the Room? That's a good name.
It is.
Yeah.
And that leads to a question. I loved your last commentary because it gave a history of where you got to where you are today, which leads to our question that we always ask our guests. What is it in life that has given you an edge?
My story.
Oh,
I've had a lot of tough things. For years I didn't talk about the fact that I was beat up in a play profusely, and that's what happened to my voice. And I didn't talk about it for years because I worried about what people would think. Well, why were you so weak? Why didn't you stand up? Why didn't you do this? And then I realized that's the piece that put me where I can help people today. I was raised in a family where I wasn't allowed to speak, where I wasn't allowed to share thoughts, dreams, emotions. That was a big part of my story. That's a big part of my edge. I want everybody. I don't feel like I'm a coach. I feel like I'm on a mission to help people free their voice and be free to speak their truth. I just want them to do it beautifully. So it's my story. It's the hard knocks. It's the single mother. It's the special needs. It's it's just hit after hit after hit, and that's my edge.
Have you noticed that with a lot of the young women, their voice is like really up here? They're really stressed. I have never noticed that in any other generation until recently, that they talk like they're really here, just stuck.
Mm-hmm. It's stuck in the back of their throat.
Yeah.
And every man as well. It is a predominantly women thing, and a lot of it is societal. Mm-hmm. The fans might not like that, but there's this perception that we're supposed to be little girls and women, and we're nice, and every woman that's ever come and worked with me, I end up predominantly working with men, strangely enough, but I've worked with many women, and that is the gig right there. They feel this need to deliver this persona, and it's killing them. But there's a fear, and it's societal based as well, that if women step into a power voice, well, they're not called a super nice name.
Well, that's a good point. And I also think that this whole issue of vocal fry that women do, that's part of it too. It's like a social pressure to have that sort of voice, but it's artificial, and it obscures the real personality of the person.
I even hear it among singers.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I even worked with a woman, an actress, and she came to me. She talked like this, and we were working on getting that pitch down, freeing her voice. And she, in the middle of a session one day, she said, "Oh, I used to not always talk like this." And I said, "Well, why'd you start?" "Well, the most pretty popular girl in high school spoke like this." I wanted to be pretty and popular, so I mimicked her. And that's exactly what you're talking about. Somebody is rich and famous and does a certain voice. Well, I want to be rich and famous like them, so I'll mimic them.
That's really insightful. I think it's important to recognize that's exactly what's happening.
Why, I even notice it in singing. A lot of the singers are singing right up here, and I go, man, did they ever hear of like breath control, diaphragm? No, it's all stuck.
No. People don't breathe. We lay that in. That's one of the biggest issues. I've had clients come to me specifically to learn to breathe. We have trained ourselves not to breathe. It's life, it's the psychology of the voice, it's the vulnerability, and then we laid it into the muscle memory. And then the worst part is we don't let the air out, we don't connect to the sound because we think that we are protecting our vulnerability. And what we end up with is a sound like this because my air can't come out. I'm not really even speaking in my real voice, but I've got to keep myself cut off from this air. I've got to protect myself.
And
See,
they
that's
sound
what
nervous and just dying. It's just a horrible.
Yeah.
And most of the people I've met who talk like that also are extremely nervous. They have some other issues many times. And it's like, relax, take a deep breath. And they look at that. You know, it's funny. Our company does training for people. We do e-learning and training development. And we had the opportunity to do mental health services training for a very large county government in Los Angeles. And that also wound up training sheriffs. The sheriff's department had to deal with people with mental illnesses. And I've had experience with that aside from the training part of it. And I said, well, one of the first things you do is lower your voice. Don't get up there with them. Lower the voice, because otherwise you're agitating them more. And that's one of the first things they teach it to police is don't scream, don't go into command and control, go into comfort, give them time, let them relax it a bit. They're already stressed, they're seeing you, they're more stressed. Let them take some time, don't rush it, which is hard.
Well,
because everyone calls, they got to
Rick,
get going.
Sorry. I'm going to have to deliberately lower my voice because I'm feeling panicky because I'm losing signal.
Oh. Are you losing signal? You sound good.
Oh, well, I am, but I see like the bar is collapsing and I'm also running battery.
Well, you're doing okay so far.
Okay, good. Well, if I just disappear, that's why.
Tracy, what's one of the biggest problems you find with people who do business presentations, for example? Where do they fall down the most, or do you see the biggest issues?
One of the biggest problems in something like that is disconnecting into the head. The mind, the body, and the voice have to be connected and working together. I call it grounded, I call it connected. If our mind, our body, and our voice are working together, we're in the zone. You know, you've been in the zone, you teach a class, you do a workshop, and somebody says, hey, how'd it go? And you're like, great. What'd you talk about? I don't remember. Well, you were in the zone. What people tend to do, especially if they're working with a script or they're not exactly sure what they're going to say, is they check into their head. The minute you check into your head, you are disconnected from your body and your voice cannot work. That's where you're going to flatline. That's where you're going to go, because you're in your head. So people have to spend time streamlining and building a script that works for them. Everybody comes to me and they've got this script, like I don't know who said this was the rule, but I just spent a month working with a podcaster establishing a script that works for him, and man, he is in the zone all the time now. And it was that foundational work. So we check into our head. The voice is like a toddler. It's going to do whatever it wants, which is probably nothing, or So that, when we're talking business presentation, we have got to be grounded and we have got to be connected and we have got to have a script that works for us. For me, it's, keywords. I can only use keywords. You give me bullet points, I'm going to look at those and I'm going to freak out because I don't know what to look at. But I had to learn that, and I was taught years and years and years ago, you have to have note cards and you have to write them this way and you have to do it this way. I forget to flip them. So I look down and I'm at my introduction and I'm 10 minutes in. I can't use note cards. I had to figure out what works for me to keep me connected and in the zone, because that's the only way we can be conversational. If I get up here and I'm thinking about the words I'm going to say, see what happened to my voice? I'm completely disconnected because I'm focused on the words. The words are everything and they are nothing. It's how we bring them to life that matters.
I've been to a lot of business presentations where I watch the speaker. Sometimes the voice is okay and the body language is stiff as a board. Hands, arms are right at the side, stiff. Legs together, stiff, and you go, wow, that's a little scary. The voice is sort of okay, but there's no movement. There's nothing to get your attention. They're just there. It's like being in a webinar, but there's no human actually giving it. And you could tell they're petrified. I would say, and see if you agree with this, but I would say a lot of the business presentations, the mistakes people make, they don't practice at all. And then when they get in front of people, they freak.
Yeah, and because of the theory, because of my methodology, because of the way I believe and have seen year after year after year after year, we've got to put it in the body. Mm-hmm. We cannot draw up something that is not there. I can imagine in my mind that I am speaking beautifully to you, but what is going to come out of my mouth is what that top layer is, always. So just by involving the body, I almost didn't make it through graduate school the first semester, because I would sit at the desk and I would try to memorize theory, and this is where I really started doing my body work. And then I couldn't remember anything, and I got up and I started adding movement to it, and I ended up graduating with a 4.0. The body has to be involved. If we involve the muscles, that's our anchor, and so it's there to draw from. And so, I am not a purist when I don't, I hear colleagues say, oh, you got to practice for 14 days and 14 hours and 27 this and 20. No. But you got to do it out loud for half an hour or an hour. And again, you got to figure out what is your zone.
Did you
I need to jump in here, but I don't think my connection is good. And I need to go, so I really apologize. But Tracy is
we're almost we're just about at the end of our time anyway. Tracy, this has been fun. I just wanted to ask you real quickly: have you done dance too, or any kind of yoga, anything for your body work?
I danced for years.
Okay.
That was another one of my side gigs, trying to avoid voice work. Yeah, I danced for years, and I choreographed musicals all over the world for years. Okay. So I was always a body person.
Yep.
So a lot of these universities and conservatories would bring me in specifically to teach voice movement integration.
Mm-hmm. That's
so that the voice and the body would be connected. And when you have that, and it's easier than you think, but when you have that, it makes all the difference in the world. The body has to be involved.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, Tracy, it's been a pleasure having you on. We'd love to have you on again, because I think we're just touching the surface of a lot of things. And let me know if you do come out to LA. We, like I said, maybe we can help you find some venues or anything else, or at least connect you up with some folks. You probably know more people than I do. So
I don't know, but I sure have that weather calling my name this summer. I'd love to come out there, but it was great. I enjoyed being here with both of you today. It was really wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
People want to get a hold of you.
Thank you. I don't think that you can see me because my
you're fine.
video seems to be frozen.
No, you're fine.
And the monitor looks frozen. Well, anyway, I wanted to thank you, Tracy. And how do we get in touch with you?
You can find me at captivatetheroom.com. And on Twitter, I'm Tracy A. Goodwin. Facebook, I'm Tracy A. Goodwin. But my website is captivatetheroom.com. My email is tracy@captivatetheroom.com. I do free voice assessments for people. So jump on that. I can tell you exactly what will make you better. But that's the best place to find me is the website.
That's great.
Well, I'm there.
Really appreciate you coming on. Susan, enjoy the rest of that vacation in Chapala. And
thank you.
We will see you all next week. Another Life Edge. Tracy, again, a pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you.
Have a good one, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.